he's lost all his hair and maybe put on a bit of weight. Michael's keeping well. I can assure you that. So thanks to Michael for letting me use his login details for this presentation today. So the topic is on resilience. It's something that I do think myself and work colleagues and fellow coaches, something that we do talk, particularly over the last couple of years. And this whole topic, how do you actually, what is resilience, and how do you, I suppose, get players to become more resilient? So, for starters, there's an old view in resilience, probably an old school thought that this is something that you have. You have it, you don't have it, and that's it. It's fixed. There's nothing really you can do about it. Thank God that's an outdated system. I think the newer model of thinking on it is to view it as a scale. As a scale that everybody has in them. So you can go up and down the scale depending on a lot of factors, depending on, I suppose, your peers, your environment you go up in, friends, family, football situation, stuff like that. So resilience can be definitely built on and address that we can actually see different ways and mechanisms of doing that. So just another wee thing on that chat box, if anyone wants to ask a question, feel free to jump in at any time. Paul will be keeping a tight day in it. So if a question pops up, you can just fire it at me and then hopefully be able to answer it. So we'll just move on. And again, I'm just conscious of maybe time days and stuff on the slides. So I'll just give it a chance to move on.
Mark?
Yeah?
Just in terms of your mic again, just be careful with your earphones just going in, because it's every time you touch it, it's having an issue with the volume.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Cheers. Okay, so the outcomes, what resilience is, identify times when a player's resilience is challenged, to highlight how players can become more resilient, to show coaches, I suppose, or show how coaches can create an environment that will promote resilience, and then finally to illustrate how the player and coach can collaborate to become more resilient. Okay, so resilience, it comes from the Latin term which means to rebound. Before last week when I was asked to do this, no. Okay, I think the more familiar term is the next one that people will be, I suppose, more familiar with, is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, or toughness. Now, I would add in a little bit with that it's not just about recovering quickly, it's probably recovering smartly and learning from the actual event. I think that is key. And to be able to do it smartly and to overcome it smartly is just as important as how quickly you recover. Okay, so the first chat box I suppose we're going to use now is now for this one. So what words come to mind when you think resilience? So we just type in into the chat box there whatever words spring to mind when you think of resilience. We'll just wait for a few more to pop in. Okay, this, lads. Good coping, bouncing back, stamina. Stamina, being able to stay the course. Okay, a few more pop in. We'll take a look at them. Learning, bounce back ability, excellent. Perseverance, great. Okay, and that'll just go ahead with some of these ones here. Be a crossover, no doubt about it. So grit, being determined, perseverance, overcoming setbacks. So these are all things and phrases that we'd associate with resilience. However, trying to mark these or gauge these or figure out ways of improving on them, it can be a wee bit different. Okay, so a few more coming in. Focus, okay, character, great stuff. Okay, Now, again, just to the chat box again, when do you think a player will need this terminology? When do you think this would be needed for a player? What kind of situations or what kind of things can happen on a field that a player might need what we just discussed there? The character, the grit, the willpower. So if we could just type in a few of those, please. Perform, definitely. A player goes out of form, a few bad decisions against them, okay, so they may feel things are going against them, maybe the referee or a few decisions in training, whatever it is, decisions going against them will test their resolve. Getting dropped, excellent. Last 5 minutes of a game, so games in the melting pot, pressure's on, will they have the resilience to push through? Maybe for a team, a player been sent off, dealing with injuries, teammates shouting at each other, going a man down, conceding a goal. Dealing with success, that's a really good one. That's, I suppose, a different way of looking at things. Resilience with success, and a lot of people maybe can go off the rails a bit with that. Okay, not getting in the first 15. Okay, some excellent ones there. We'll add to a few of these ones that I'd say they've probably actually been covered. It's great. So first of all, injuries. If you think of a player maybe getting a cruciate injury, it can be a really, really tough time for a player. Having to do all that rehab and working on their own, being at the physio, not being out in the pitch with their mates, that's a really tough time for a player to get through. Getting dropped. So again, a player mightn't be expecting it. Could be they played for maybe 7 or 8 games in a row, then maybe out of the blue they might feel that next time they're dropped. Poor performance. It's going to happen to us all. We all have these bad days at the office. Again, the longer you play football, maybe the better you are coping with things, but you're still going to have your bad days regardless. Losing a big game, that can be quite tough. You've invested so much in it. You put a huge effort in and you just come up short. Okay, you might have played well, other things could have went well, but just you didn't get across the line, and that can be a hard one for a player to swallow. Getting criticism, this is probably even more so prevalent at the minute with maybe social media, and that it could be bad enough hearing a bit of criticism come from the stands. But if you go home, you're in bad form maybe, and pick up your phone and you see someone's berating you on social media or something like that. Again, for players, that can be a really hard thing to deal with. At the end of the day, they're amateur players, and that can be something that stings with a player. And, resilience is definitely to get over that kind of thing. Being subbed, look at that. Anyone who's played football has been subbed. It can be a hard one to take maybe sometimes. You might agree with it sometimes. One of the worst ones that I had, when we were playing a Hastings Cup game in Leitrim, we drove, I don't know how many hours to get down there. We went around every back road. We landed late. We had a very quick warm-up. We hadn't the proper warm-up, straight into the game. And 10 minutes in, I got the curly finger. And it was a stinger. There was an embarrassment to it. You felt fairly low about it. You're annoyed about it. I've only been to like 4 times. The 3 other times were all stag parties. And every time I left Leitrim, I came home with a sore head. So that can sit something early like that. Can be a stinger, but you have to take the learnings out of it. My head wasn't in the right space. The 3 balls came in, were dropped. It was a county under 21 game. It was up a level. So these things happen. You take it on the chin and you have to roll on and learn from it. So that was excellent. The feedback came in there was brilliant. So we're just going to take a look here at what players can do. So just if you have a pen and paper yourself, I don't want to write this into the chat box. Just write down what you think players can do to become more resilient. What kind of strategies can they do to be more resilient? So just give you a wee minute, just to scribble down just a couple of things you think yourself that maybe a player can do to build resilience or to become more resilient. Okay. So we'll just draw your attention first of all to the picture. So it's a Navajo proverb, and when you read it, somebody maybe from South Kerry would say, you can't make a person who's pretending to be asleep. So the first thing is the responsibility of the player. You know, your own resilience is really down to yourself first and foremost, and you have to be open to improving. You have to recognize that you need to improve, and until you do that, you know, no one's going to do it for you. Coaches can create the environment and everything else, but if you're not open to it and you're not susceptible to it and you're not letting it in, you know, you're going to be selling yourself short all the time. So first and foremost, you have to say that the players need to really tune in for this next part, that it's really has to be player led. The responsibility is on the player. Okay. So first of all, say reframing, growth mindset. Okay. So that's basically how you perceive things. So players have a growth mindset. If something negative goes against them, they figure a way out to think about what there has to be positive in some way, and try and work on something to make it positive. The support network's hugely important. So the people you have around you, anyone who makes it to the top will tell you that, you know, they had that maybe good support network around the best for them. Modeling resilient behavior, that's basically your role models, okay, who you look up to. And we all have them. We all had them growing up. So it's a case of, you know, honing in, looking at them and maybe replicating what they do. Resourcefulness, I think this is a huge one. I think people might get bogged down on, you know, resources, what they have, or what, you know, what kind of equipment they have, or people are locked down now at home and, oh, sure, I don't have goalposts, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. Resourcefulness is far more important than resources. So resourcefulness, people will make the best of what they have, and that's a great trait to have. Positive self-talk. Okay, this one's a big one as well. So when you find yourself in sticky situations or times when you need resilience, you know, use positive language. I can do this, I will. That kind of positive language to kind of reinforce that you are capable of getting out of this situation that you're in. I suppose there's a quote from Henry Ford, you know, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. So that's kind of the positive self-talk, the power that has. People who genuinely kind of believe things will work out for them, they generally do work out for them.
Jen, Mark, just before you move on there's a question after coming in here. In terms of building resilience in players, does having a role model help?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge part of it. You know, we all grew up having role models. They might have been, you know, people that were maybe professional athletes. You know, you look at the Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls documentary at the minute. You know, that's flooding back memories for people. Some people would have really loved how Michael Jordan went about things, pushing himself to the limit, not accepting second best, just really pushing as hard as he could to be the best he could. But I honestly think, even, you know, within every club, you have senior players that you look up to. The senior players that are playing football at the minute within clubs are so diligent. They put in huge effort. You know, they're doing their gym work. They're eating right. You know, there's a wealth of knowledge within clubs, I think. So these role models don't have to be, you know, real fanciful. These professional athletes up here, I think we're very lucky we have a community full of them. Our county senior team, they're a phenomenal bunch as well. And I've got them over the last maybe year or so working with the minors. Anything you ask, it's no problem. You know, they're a fantastic bunch. They really are. I know Ryan Whitey came down to True to present medals for juveniles. He was there for 3-4 hours. You know, not a problem to him. You know, these role models are living amongst us. They're not, you know, as I said, they're not kind of way out over there somewhere, that they're professional athletes and they're not accessible. You know, we're very lucky that we have a lot of them within Monaghan.
Very good, Mark. Look, I'd like to thank Jim for that question. Okay,
thanks, Jim. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these in just a little bit more detail now. So first of all, the reframing and having a growth mindset. So if you look at the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, the growth mindset, they embrace challenge, okay? They learn from feedback and criticism. So they don't take the hump if somebody tells them something negative about their game, or if they're being constructively critical of them. They take this on board and they see this as an opportunity to, right, I need to improve on this. Where somebody with a fixed mindset, kind of happy enough where I am mightn't want to work on my left foot because it's not that good. To have this kind of closed view of things. And if you have a closed view of things, you're probably going to give up a wee bit easier. You're not going to stick at things as well. The growth mindset, then you're going back to, there's more effort. Keep trying, never give up. They learn from failure and they want to keep learning. And, again, if you want to look at examples of this, I remember talking to Paul here about just development squads and how do minor teams, how do you develop over years. And he mentioned about Colin Walsh in this one, that Colin would have been probably one of the smaller guys coming in on the 14 development squads. But he just stuck at it. And we had a similar experience with Ryan Whitey, probably on the 14, under 15 development squad. Easily the smallest guy we had. Wasn't physically developed, but Jesus Christ, you talk about a sponge. Anything he could take on board, he took on board. And Marty Corey often tell the story about a team meeting and Ryan Whitey bringing in his own notebook and pen, just wanting to learn. That story would be replicated, people would tell that story, but it's different. The kid actually thinking of that himself, it really shows a growth mindset that, I need to keep improving. There's days Ryan without playing development squad games, he's playing against guys trying to size them, they're blowing him out of the way. But he was trying to do all the right things. He was taking all the instruction he was getting and he was learning, and he never saw failure as a massive setback. He just saw it as a learning curve. And it was no big surprise to be anyway. Ryan's going to be captain this year. And again, a fantastic role model. So the growth mindset, really important. There's a story, Tiger Woods' father, when Tiger Woods was growing up and out practicing, the father would be coming with him, and he used to get really bogged down in a bad shot. He used to really eat at him, and he used to get very frustrated, and he rated himself. And the father basically taught him how to reframe it. He says, right, every round of golf you play, you're going to hit one of these shots. He says, you now have an opportunity to hit a shot that everyone's going to remember. And that changed it from an obstacle to an opportunity. So that growth mindset is huge. And, people who think that way can only improve. They can only keep getting better. Again, another one, Ulster Rugby. I remember seeing a presentation, I think it was something to do with Peter Donnelly when he came on board with them. But they were talking about injured players. And that's, again, we talked about that being a really tough time for a player when they're out injured. And they talked about reframe and stuff to do. They made sure when the player came back from injury, they came back better. Okay, so how did they do that? They identified maybe a weakness in the player's technical ability, and it was something they worked on. So you might have, an injured foot, but you can still do your handwork. Okay, so passing off either side. So if there's a player particularly weak on one side, they worked on that. So when they came back to playing, not only were they coming back probably fitter and in a better position physically, but their skills had actually improved as well. So that growth mindset, it's such an important element. Moving on to the next one then, your support network. Now, I've by design, I've put teammates and coaches up at the top. And I believe that when it comes to support network, within your inner circle are always going to be more honest to you than anybody else. Okay, because they're probably thinking, your friends and your family and maybe a mentor are going to be kind of focusing on you, whereas, the team environment, you will get more honesty because it's not all about you. And in life, you have to learn that too. Everything's not revolving around you, so you have to see your picture, see where you fit in places, and do your best. So support network, sometimes you have to be careful because, as I said, family and friends, they maybe want the best for you. Sometimes they tell you things that you want to hear as opposed to things that you need to hear. Okay, a mentor, I think, is a fantastic thing. I think in life, everybody needs them. A mentor, someone that's you can touch base with, someone's been through what you've been through. I think it's really beneficial if you have somebody like that. Again, it could be somebody in your club. A good thing for your club could be to maybe have a senior player mentoring a juvenile player. That a juvenile player hits a sticky patch or they're not sure and they want to develop a game, they can drop in and ask them, how can I get better at this? So having a mentor I think it's really important as well. We have a video here. We're not sure how this is going to play. No one previous webinars they've struggled to play. So I'm going to try and play it. The video mightn't actually play. You actually might get an option to play it on your own screen. So it mightn't play the video, but you might get the audio. And the audio is what's important. And it's Robin van Persie talking about his son, who basically had a final for Feyenoord against Ajax and was dropped. So I'm just going to look and I'll try and play it. And if it doesn't work, we can just maybe talk through it. And I see there's a question in. I'll hit that question now shortly. Just while we're waiting for that to load. On the mentoring, we have a Zoom tournament with the mainers, and we have 6 or 7 of the county seniors coming in with us to chat with the mainers. So again, that mentorship, it's a really good culture to set in your club or within the county. And Monaghan are blessed, as I said. Monaghan have players who are really connected to the Monaghan project and are willing to give their time and effort to meet with younger players. So it's a fantastic setup, the county senior setup. But that doesn't seem to be loading. It's okay. I'll just run
just on that, Mark.
So
sorry,
Robin
Mark.
van Persie's son, yeah.
It is working for some people at home. So if people want to try to play it themselves, it might play for them.
Yeah, it could be working. Sorry, yeah. Just give it a minute.
Yeah, Mark, that's the video played.
Okay, mine's just playing through here. Okay, thanks for that played through. Yeah, so again, and the question come up there about parents, what can you do to help your kids become more resilient? There's nearly a very broad spectrum of this. You get maybe the parent, the young fella, the young girl could be atrocious, and they know themselves have been bad, and the parent comes in and tells them that they were brilliant, that the ball wasn't given to them, that the referee was against them, so the coaches, what they know, they shouldn't have been playing you there. And, it's nearly like a poison thing they're steeping in, telling them these kind of things, because the child will know when they haven't played well. And then you could have the opposite one where, you know, there's never any praise coming from the parent. They're always very critical. You know, it's in the middle, you know, being maybe truthful and helpful. So, you know, maybe let the child come to you and ask you first, because sometimes they might want to talk about it for a while. So if they come to you and maybe asks, you know, fair enough, okay, right, let's talk about it. And then ask questions. Instead of maybe telling them stuff, ask questions. What do you think you can get better at? What do you think you need to improve on? You know, as opposed to maybe asking the first thing you ask them to win the game, what did you score? You know, get the top of them questions like this, and maybe pressure a bit, ask them, did they enjoy it? You know, but if you think they're a wee bit down on it, give them a wee bit of time maybe to try and figure it out. As parents, you know, and I think get wrong, we're forever trying to remove obstacles away from our kids because we want to protect them. But you know, sometimes you have to let them figure things out. And how can they grow without learning these, you know, these lessons? So sometimes, you know, we maybe have to take a step back. You know, if they come to you and they need support, yeah, 100%, of course you give it to them. But you know, what Van Persie did there, I think was, you know, he was straight down the middle. You know, if this is something you really want, you're going to pursue it. You're going to prove people wrong. You're going to work harder instead of blaming. And you know, I think it was very refreshing to hear parents saying that. So I hope that's okay.
Yep, very good. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so after support network, I think this should be all for us. Modeling resilient behavior, and this is going back to the role model question and the importance of role models. So if you have the option of playing the video, you know, you can play away at it there. I'm just going to wait for a wee minute because it may take a while to load. But everyone looks at the best and they see them as the finished article. They see them at the peak of their powers and think, Jesus, they're class. They've had it so easy. You know, they make it look easy. You know, wouldn't it be great to be where they are? But very few people actually travel the road they've travelled. I think it takes it. Even Cristiano Ronaldo had to leave his home at 11 years of age. You know, and many people will actually do that, leave their family home, go to a stranger's house to follow a dream. You know, very few people would actually be willing to do that. Other owns the screen time, you know, at again, Michael Jordan, if you can play that video, I'm trying to play it now. I don't see him as, you know, the greatest ever, but if you see what he did, what he pushed himself through to get to there, and even fear again would be willing to actually do it. So if you can play the video, I'm going to try and play it here, but if you can play it again yourselves, it's a shorter video than this. But it can hit the nail on the head of what we're talking about. Maybe a bit of feedback in the chat box if it is playing okay for you. Okay, thanks, David. Okay.
Yeah, that's over here, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So again, I think modeling resilient behavior, you know, people see the finished article saying it's a rocky road to success. Okay, so you need to weather the bad times to enjoy the good times. So, you know, would it be worth doing if it was easy? Probably wouldn't be. And there's competitiveness in all of us, and to get to the top and to get where I suppose a lot of these people have got to, there's a huge effort required, and you're going to hit roadblocks. There's going to be things go against you, and this, if you take them all as lessons, if you have the growth mindset, this will all feed into helping you get to where you want to get to. Okay, so the next one is resourcefulness. Okay, so let's just read this here to start off with. Okay, so resilient players will make the most. Sorry, I think somebody made a make on. Resilient players will make the most of what they have and make the best out of bad situations. They'll find reasons to get things done when others find excuses. So I think it's a fantastic attribute for any young fella to have, or anybody to have, is resourcefulness. Okay, I said it's not all about having the best of everything, it's making the best of what you actually have. You look at a lot of the top soccer players coming from, impoverished backgrounds and making the best of themselves and really persevering through really hard times to get to where they got to. The picture, I love the picture. That picture was sent to me by one of our county miners. And again, you talk about resourcefulness, you talk about making the best of the situation. No pitches to train on, no goalposts to practice on, no problem. We'll make a set them up. Okay, so just that mindset's fantastic to have. And I know as we set up a pitch and stuff as well, pitch. And, when people see that, it does inspire other guys to actually go and replicate that as well. Okay, so resourcefulness, it's a powerful tool to have in your box. It's you'll spot opportunities for other people to see dead in. And again, that's a huge beneficial thing to have. So the next slide, sorry, should be coming up now. Has that come up, Paul?
No, it hasn't moved on yet, Mark.
Okay, give me a second.
Oh, still hasn't moved. It'll come.
Hasn't come up just yet. Well, the next one, I'll start talking about. Hopefully, it'll pop up. So it's positive talk, positive self-talk, and the importance of positive self-talk. And apologies, I idea goes. I'm just about to murder an Irish expression here. Fucking shul gruma, say gruma. So the gloomy eye sees a gloomy world, and that's very true. Your perspective on things and your outlook on things are going to have an impact in how you are inside. So if you constantly have this negative opinion of yourself, that's going to reflect inside. Okay, so the you you'd see is the you you'd be. And again, it's back to the Henry Ford one. Just being so kind of having I suppose that inner belief that that you're in the right path, that you're working hard, things will work out for you. If you keep working hard, you keep implementing the strategies. People who do have positive outlooks tend to do well in life. They really do. So again, as I say, that the you'd see is the you'd be. So let's take a good opportunity now, Paul. If any player wants to fire any questions at this point, just for this to load up as well.
Yeah, it hasn't moved on, Mark. If you want to if you just want to come out of stop sharing and start it again.
It's coming on now. Yeah, it's moved on mine.
Right.
you want to just give it a second, because it's come up on mine now, so it might
it's come up now.
If anyone else can see it, maybe just let us know in the chat box. And that's, if there's any players want to fire in any questions now about the things we're back on track. Yeah,
it's moved on here. Yeah.
Okay, so I give a quick minute here. Okay, thanks, Keelan. That's great, lads. Thank you. If anyone has any question on, I suppose, from a player's perspective on what we just covered there, just give me the opportunity to ask questions. That's okay. I think we might move on then. And again, folks, feel free to fire in questions. At any point. If I miss it in the chat, Paul will keep you posted. Okay, just start pushing forward. Here we go. So again, it might be a wee bit delayed on your side, but I'll just continue on with it. Develop resilience. Okay, so for the coaches and managers, what kind of things you can promote that will actually help players become more resilient. As I said, parents and coaches are a bit like this at times. Sometimes we want to remove as many obstacles as we want. I can't wait from the players. That's not always the best thing. So delivering, say, tactics or whatever it is, if you just tell them, this is it, it's dogmatic, this is exactly what we're doing. Don't deviate from that plan. This is it. What are we coaching? We're coaching probably robotic players that will do exactly what you say, but then when something happens off the cuff or something they're not expecting, the Pat Gilroy step, start earwigs, people are kind of frozen. They don't really know how to react to it. Okay, so resilience could be challenges then. So creating an environment, we're looking at problem solving, we're looking at creating challenging situations and training sessions, we're looking at building confidence in players, and then finally autonomy. Okay, so giving players their say. So hopefully if I can move on here. So the first one, problem solving. Okay, should be loaded up now, sorry.
Hasn't moved, Mark.
So with problem solving, I suppose it's including players. Yes, okay, I'll talk, I'll wait, it'll probably just come up, so I'll try and talk on, there is a bit of writing on it, but I can come back to it. So I'll give a practical example for problem solving. A good thing to do, you can pick two teams, you have two different coaches over each team, give both of them a different set of instructions, let them play the game, call them back in and start asking them, what's happening? How are the other team setting up? What are they doing? So this way you're creating players that will be thinking. They start thinking more outside themselves. They're not just thinking about their own role. They're kind of thinking a wee bit bigger. They're looking at, I suppose, if you want to talk with two brains, the player, the individual brain, and the team brain. So problem solving is to get players to solve problems. So this can be done by effective questions throughout your session. So maybe asking, what worked well there? What didn't go so well? Why? And then how can we fix this? And you're including them in that whole process. So they'll feel that, they are an integral part, which they are, of the whole process. So it goes back to that old saying in teaching, tell me I forget, teach me and I may remember, but if you involve me, I learn. So again, that example of, setting instructions, when you're implementing your training sessions after a few weeks, you could just pick two captains. Captain one, you decide what way your team's playing, how you're setting up. Captain two, you set up your team. And it's actually very good for the coaches then. So now the coaches are actually learning on the line and they're trying to spot what's going on in the game. Okay, so it actually helps your own coaching as well. And it develops that bit of thinking on the line, because in games, things are thrown at you. You have to respond to them. You have to react. On the lane, you can only do so much of that. Players have to be able to think their way around and problem solve. So you have to create these situations in training where they can actually problem solve. And as they clean them, you get a better buy in. Challenging situations. So in order to prepare for the game, you must challenge players in our trainings. So coach players to be good decision makers, to be flexible. We can do this by providing different scenarios in training sessions. Okay, so for example, you might be up against a team that you know play a certain way. Okay, so you're kind of tailoring your team for that. But if you're constantly going in a fixed way of playing, you play the same way all the time, you're going to hit pitfalls if you're not kind of taking the opposition into account. So challenging situations, chop it up and change it in training. Give them different things to think about. So you can set up one team in a particular way, and then after 15 minutes to switch around a different way. So again, they'll be challenged in different ways. And they start to get the problem solving. Condition great games are great for this. You know, that you're completely changing the rules around, they're thinking all the time. And what you're trying to do is, I suppose, Gilbert Anoka was a former All Blacks manager, and a quote from him, it's about performing under pressure in the pack. So the more, I suppose, competitive and intense you can make your training sessions, the better they're going to perform on match day. So to perform under pressure, when it really matters, you need to train that way. I think it's the Navy SEALs of this saying, team never raise the occasion. You don't raise the occasion. If you haven't trained, if you've trained kind of slow and you've prepared poorly, you're not just going to pull a performance out of your hat. Okay? You don't raise the occasion, you actually sink to the level of your training. So if your training sessions are intense, you know, that there's really good intensity in it, there's really good buy-in, players are pushing themselves, they've been challenged, they're learning, they're talking, they're problem solving, you know, you're going to have a higher performing team. And as the Navy SEAL said, it's a brilliant saying, you don't raise the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. Okay, so I think that challenging thing is really important for players, and players love to be challenged. They love to be set a challenge. And just going to the picture there, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, like Tyson. So again, if you have a fixed thing and this is the way we do it and this is it, you know, you're setting yourself up for a fall. Okay? As Mike quite rightly said, you know, you get a sucker punch, and then how do you react to it? We need to be coaching decision makers. And again, this all ties into resilience, because when you get stuck in games, they're going to have to figure things out, and they're not going to throw the towel in. You know, they're going to say, right, well, we train for this, etc., etc. So they're going to push on through it. Building confidence, be authentic and be genuine. You have to be yourself. And I'm helping here. When I got the minor job, I was chatting to somebody a few weeks before, and the conversation hadn't even come up about the minors, and they were talking about who's going to be the next manager, and they basically said, look, this is a pies and chalice, the next person walks into this job. And, you know what they're saying. And I remember Banty actually gave a management talk in Counihan, brilliant talk. I took some really useful things out of it. And then after that, became the minor manager. If I went in pretending to be Banty or trying to be Banty, it would have been a complete disaster. You know, you can't fake who you are. As coaches and as managers, we're magpies. We take pieces off everybody. You know, there's very little authentic about this whole presentation. I've got this from talking to other coaches, from talking to other people, from books I've read, whatever it is. You know, there's that's coaching, that's management. How you deliver it and your own personal style is very important. You can't really fake somebody else. You really have to be as genuine, as authentic as you can, because the players will see through it as well. You know, if they know you to be a certain way, and then you walk into the dressing room and you're acting completely different, you know, they look at you as if you have two heads. The next bit, and it gives them confidence. If you're confident in your own skin, that'll give them confidence. Have an interest in the player. Take the time. This is something that I know myself I need to work on a bit better. You know, take the time to get to know them outside of football. Have something to talk about to them that doesn't maybe involve football. You know, and it's important to a player, and it does make a difference when you actually ask them about their day or what, you know, how they are into music, you know, ask them something about that. If it's fishing, ask them something about that. You know, getting to know your players, taking the time. I think it's a good expression. It's a good thing to do. Give praise when it's due, give reassurance when it's needed, and always give a way forward when a player makes a mistake. So first of all, give praise when it's due. Again, it's probably not in the Irish culture to give a lot of praise, and it's probably even harder to accept praise. But it is important. You know, if they've done a good job, tell them they've done a good job. It could make a player feel 2 inches taller. Give them a clap on the back coming off the field. Give reassurance when it's needed. So if they're having doubts about themselves, you know, just reassure them. Tell them about their qualities. Tell them why they're so good. Tell them what they need to work on. Okay, that's important too, that you're honest with them, that, you know, they're in a rut or there's something not working out for them. You know, right, these are all your positive attributes. Right, let's work on a couple of things that'll bring you on and maybe help you in this scenario. Always give a way forward. Players are going to make mistakes. Any one of us that made mistakes on and off the pitch, guaranteed. Some of us made multiple mistakes. Some of us are still making them. But that's part of life. It's part of growing up. It's important. Okay, you can't let a player just be completely off the wall the whole time or anything else. It's important to give them an opportunity to make amends. That you don't just black card them, that's it, gone. I'll be like, you'll never see you again. You know, how can you build confidence in a player doing that? You know, right, you've done wrong. Hopefully they've held their hands up, acknowledge it. You know, you talk about it. If it's a recurrent theme, then obviously, yeah, you know, we need to move on from that. But if they're willing to learn, give them that opportunity to make amends. So building confidence, it's again, I find it's something that I probably need to improve as well. Like because I'm a teacher, I suppose, as well, I get asked to do a lot of references, and I find I'm writing these, and the references they do, they're individual for the person, and I find that there's times of what I'm writing, I'm saying, geez, I've never told this player this. I've never told them, you know, how much I actually valued them. I think it's an important thing that we do, you know, just acknowledge and give praise when it is due. Okay, sorry, the question.
Yeah, just one question there, Mark. For managing under 9 or under 11s, can we give too much praise?
Sorry, just a question from here. Yeah.
Yeah, for managing under 9s or under 11s, can we give too much praise, and would it be detrimental in the long run?
No, I think at that age that it's all with fun. And being honest with you, you could give them the best nugget of advice, or you could coach them a skill to a fine art to an absolute T. But if you're an ass to them, they'll remember that. They won't remember what you coached them. So, you know, at that age group, they're, you know, if you ask a group of 7 or 8-year-olds who in this class can sing, every hand goes up. And they might be cat, but every hand will go up. Okay? And, you know, as adults, we probably chip away at them a wee bit. Maybe it's just a wee bit of realism. But at under 9s and under 11s, it's about enjoyment. Yeah, the coaching skills and everything else, but they will remember how you made the feed. So just be careful how you give feedback. Tell them, I suppose there's a sandwich theory, 2 good things and maybe something to work on in the middle. You know, 3 stars or a wish is something that's done in teaching, where you'll say, you're brilliant at X, Y, and Z, really good, but you know what you could work on to become even better, and then just softly put in the thing they need to work on. Because yeah, they do need to improve, but you know, you wouldn't be giving them straight, put it that way. Or you wouldn't be dealing with them. So I'd be just go back to making them feel happy, making them enjoy the experience. Some players at that age are just natural and they will take it, they'll just fly to excel. Some players in that age group will sit and pick flowers and they don't want to be there, you know, and you do have an onus to make sure that child still goes home happy. So don't enforce maybe your expectations on the child, you know. As I said, maybe just go with that sandwich approach where you give them a bit of feedback on what they're good at, and then tell them something. You know what would really bring you on, and you know, it'd be class if you could start picking up the ball with that left foot. You know, whatever it is. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Damon, for the question. Autonomy next. So, how do you actually create an autonomous environment? And some people might be really reluctant to do this, but you don't have to go overboard with it. And I think it's a really powerful tool. I really do. So how do you create it? Give players choices. So again, this is about players. It's not about you. It's not about your ego. Right, lads? When suits to train? What might suit you to train? What time suits you to train? Giving them choices. If there's gear to be got, lads, you pick it. Players love that. They love that bit of involvement, and it gives them a wee bit of a control, and they feel a wee bit more part of it. Form a leadership group. This will be for older age groups, maybe not juveniles now, but say your minors, even under 15, 16s, whatever it is, definitely on the seniors. I'd always have this. You have a leadership group there, and if it is a senior team, make sure it's a broad range. Don't have your 5 most dedicated players in there. Don't have 5 32-year-olds in there. They will have a similar view of what's going on. And I remember, when I was a young player coming in, you'd like your social life. The older players were married with kids, and we saw them, they barely sore heads sometimes, or just complaining about us being out. We're like, Jesus, well for you, you're married, you have a few kids at home there, we need something to be at. So you need a balance. So and again, maybe have a reserve player in there as well. So you have a good kind of balance and a mix of opinions there in the leadership group. The leadership group is fantastic for sorting out problems before they even get to you. If you have an effective leadership group, they'll be tackling problems themselves. They'll be, a buffer for you and the players. And, it could be a thing. Look, there's a concert coming up. There's 8 of the players have tickets booked. They want to go to it. What's the story here? And then you put back on them. How do you feel about it? And they'll say, well, look, to be fair, they have it booked. They haven't missed training. They're pushing hard. Right, fair enough. We'll let them go to their concert. It's a long year. Give and take. Make it player-centered. Again, take the egos out of it. It's about the players. If the players are buying in and enjoying it, you're going to have a far better environment. And get constructive feedback. Players, they do like feedback. They want feedback. They want to be, I suppose, told how they're getting on and stuff like that. So make it constructive. And the benefits of this is a document I kind of cropped. I got it from the GAA website. You have increased intrinsic motivation. So the intrinsic motivators are, I suppose, they're the ones you want. They're there to self-improve and to be better and to be a part of something. That's the type of footballers you want. You have greater investment of effort. Again, you're hitting your resilience here. High levels of concentration. Again, people talk about the very start there, the last 10 minutes of a game, having that resilience to push through. But, if your concentration levels are better, you're going to be able to problem solve and figure it out a wee bit better. Improved task persistence. That's resilience in a nutshell there. Increased performance levels, and then you have a reduced dropout rate and burnout. And on that last one, I was watching a webinar of Jim McGuinness recently, and he was asked about that, specifically about burnout. And he made a very good point, because when we don't talk about Donegal and they were completely dogged, and burnout, and those players were, they were put through the mire and all the rest of it. But he says, no, it was an enjoyable environment. He says, you look at the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, they're playing 55, 60 games a year. There's no word of burnout. They're enjoying it. They're in an enjoyable environment. They're enjoying what they're doing. They're having success as well, which helps. That'll help player longevity and players wanting to come back. So, if the environment's good, it's not going to be a chore to come to the training. They're going to look forward to coming to training. And that word enjoyment again, it's so important. Your setup, if it's real dogmatic, and if it's, you barking instructions all the time, the modern day player doesn't want to listen to that. Involve them and they'll learn. Okay, so autonomy, people might say it as a hard thing, but even if you just take some of the smaller things, giving players choices, even if you're getting a new club jersey or you're getting new gear, like, give it over to the senior players. Otherwise, you're going to be wearing it. What do you want? Okay, let them pick it. Okay, and hopefully you're in a good place with your players that you can take the next step, which is the player and coach taking an approach in building resilience. Okay, so I kind of see building resilience. It can be hard if you just take resilience on its own. I think it needs to be scaffolded by all these things we've talked about. and that all helps to build resilience. So things like this, and again, this is stuff I'm looking at myself. I'm saying I need to probably push on with this and do a wee bit more of this. We would have done goal set with the minors, sitting down with them, talking to them, giving them a wee bit of feedback. The SWOT analysis is an interesting one. So you can have subjective, an object player writes down what they think their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, and then you, the coach, write down the objective version of how you see it, and obviously your objective because it's not you personally. And then it's an interesting exercise, bouncing off each other. A player may rate themselves, work rate, they may hit it 9 out of 10, and they look over at the coaches, and the coaches hit it 5. So straight away, somebody's a wee bit off, and it's more than likely going to be the player. So if you take stats and analysis, you can back that up then by saying, well, look at, here's your tackle count, the GPS, and they're playing wing forward, and the other wing forward's covering 2K more than them. Again, you can point to that and say, well, look at, you're not at the level that these guys are at. You're not putting in the tackles, you're not putting in the work rate, so you can't really be giving yourself a 9 out of 10. So you don't just leave it at that. You give them, a way to work on it. Right? Well, how can I improve it? Okay, maybe you need to look at technically how they're tackling. Are they getting their feet in the right position, etc., etc. So it's a powerful tool to use. The other one then is player profiling, and again, I got this one off GAA website in actual form, and we get Paul to attach it to the email that goes out to coaches. It's another great way. Again, you have a column there for players to grade themselves, and then you have a grade the coach gives, and it's got all the skills on it. Hurling one, there could be a few hurling people in here. There's a hurling version of it as well. So through all the skills, you grade them, and again, you're comparing them, and you're seeing where you're at. And the player has an option then, right? Do I push on here and work on this and make myself better? And it helps if you have a review meeting maybe a wee bit later on, and then you can look at the scores again. And if they haven't improved, you have a few questions you can ask the player then. The player has to be show a bit of honesty here on this as well. Okay, so I suppose as a coach and a manager, the overall thing you want is to get a more resilient team. But to get a more resilient team, you have to build resilient individuals. Okay, and it's a well-known saying this: for the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. Okay, so that's what you're really trying to get, is that environment where resilience is built up. There's boys willing to die in the jersey for each other. They're going to go to the ends of the earth for each other. That may not culminate in you actually winning a trophy. That may not mean you win a trophy, but you will have a journey and an experience that I guarantee the players won't forget. And there'll be huge buy-in. And, if you look at the Monaghan Senior Championship, 10 teams playing it, there's one team going to win it. Realistically, how many teams can realistically say that their ambition is to win it? So you have to figure out what your aim is, what your goal is, what your group is fit for. And again, you're doing that with the players. Okay. And, if you go through this process, you will build a team that will give absolutely everything for each other. Okay. You might be guaranteed success, but you will be guaranteed that you'll have a great buy-in, you'll have a great experience, you'll have great relationships with your players, which, ultimately is probably on a higher pedestal than anything else. So I'll just, do you want me to pause for a minute, Paul, to ask any questions, or will I just?
Yeah, we'll just.
I'll actually,
I'll
the next two, and then you can ask questions. Yeah. So just further learning, things that I would have found useful, books, looking at Legacy from James Kerr. It's one of the Bibles. I love going back to it. It's got fantastic things, and how to build that team environment. Winning by Clive Woodward, Hoop Dreams by Phil Jackson. I suppose Phil Jackson's very popular at the minute with the Netflix documentary. It's not only books. There's so many. There's podcasts out there. There's so many. These are just a wee handful that I put out. Social media then. Kelly Fay is the sports psychologist that worked with me with True Sean's and County Miners. Find her fantastic. She's on Twitter there if anyone wants to look her up. Alistair McCaw is on Twitter again. Anya McNamara. Fergus Connolly from Monaghan. I suppose what we're talking about, Fergus was doing this for years with really high-end corporations and professional sports teams. The bottom is my own email. If anyone wants to drop an email and ask a question or anything that, and make it happen, no worries at all there. So that kind of concludes it. I'd like to thank everyone. It was great to see the numbers that were in here. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. I hope people got something out of it. As I said, I genuinely believe there's other people in it that will be better qualified than me talking about it. But I'd like to thank Paul again for the opportunity to talk. And anyone that has a question, fire away there.
Yeah, Mark, so just before maybe a few questions come in towards the end, look, I'd like to thank you for delivering the webinar tonight. Not easy. I suppose we're all having to adapt in the current climate, and you've certainly done that. And when I asked you, would you deliver the webinar, there's absolutely no problems in you doing that. So fair play to you. And you adapted well to any situations or any difficulties that arose through the presentation. So fair play to you, Mark. Well done, and thanks for that. So I see a couple of questions coming in here, Mark, so I'll bang them out to you here. In terms of a player has lost form or confidence, for example, free taker, is it important to get to know the thoughts are going through the player's mind on the pitch? Would buzzwords plant a positive mindset and build resilience?
Yeah, so I suppose for the free taker, a free taker's confidence is really important, as we all know. They need to be kind of single-minded. Free takers, we're very lucky at the County Minors with Jerry Connolly. Jerry would have worked with Paul Finlay, with Conor McManus, and he is technically fantastic at this, breaking down the art of free taking. For a free taker, they have to get into, I suppose, the mindset for one free taker. It doesn't matter if you're taking a free in your club on your own on a Tuesday morning, or if you're taking one in the All-Ireland final. It's hard to actually get into that mindset, but things don't change. So the mindset of a free taker is something you could write books on, I suppose. But first of all, free takers will go through rough patches, and they maybe question themselves and doubt themselves. Maybe they're over practicing, overthinking things sometimes. So the coach, it is important you actually know your free taker, maybe what works for them, maybe tell them, look, just ease off maybe for a night or two. You're probably overcomplicating it. You're not going to turn into a bad free taker overnight. You've been hitting frees for us all year. You've been hitting fantastic frees. And then when they're in a good mind space to do it, maybe right, okay, let's go back out and let's take a look. And I suppose analysing it, analysing the free taking, is it an issue with technique, or is it a psychological issue? So there's two different, I suppose, parts there. If it's a technical issue, look it up. I suppose Philip Kerr and different coaches like this, John Morrison, would have had good things up on free takers and technique and stuff like that. So you can kind of look for those cues and see, are their shoulders pivoting away? Are they finishing square on with the goals? Are they following through their kick? There's small wee things like that just could be a wee technical thing, or it could be the psychological thing where nerves are getting the better of them, and building that mindset. So if you're practicing, maybe you have a couple of players out shouting at them when they're practicing, just to get them used to that environment of being put off and that wee bit of added pressure. If you're having conditioned games, double or quits, so your team scores a point, right, all goes to the free taker where the score came from. There you go. So you're giving them opportunities in training. You're making them, I suppose, pressurized. It's going back to that making a challenging environment for the free taker, but really try and get the mindset that it doesn't matter where you're taking that free. And I know it can be easy saying it, but just to get into your own rhythm, concentrate and focus on your technique, and try and block out everything else. And I know it can be quite easy saying that. It's probably a hard question to answer definitively here, but I hope that kind of helps them.
Okay, very good. Just another question here, Mark. At what age group should a coach really start building resilience into a squad, or should it be done seamlessly from a young age?
Yeah, I think from a young age, like me and my wife be talking here with the wee lassie, she's 2.5. She's mad. We're walking a loop here, and we're all mad walking this loop, but she's just mad to go running as fast as she can. And we keep pulling the reins back because we're afraid of her falling. But she's not going to learn until she falls, and then she has to get up again. So I honestly think it's something, like I talk about parents and coaches maybe removing obstacles. We need to let them fail. We need to let them fall, and just encourage them to get back up and get at it. And I think it is from a young age. I think it's from a young age that we start teaching resilience to kids. Again, like she wanted to get her own shoes on. You might be rushing in the morning. No, here, I'll do it for you. Make a mess of it the first few times, but kids do naturally have good resilience. They keep pushing on. They want to do things. So let them express themselves. Let them fail. Let them fall. And just encourage them to get back up and try it again. I honestly do think they have an abundance of to start off with, and I think we kind of chip away at adults as they get older and older. So in terms of teams, definitely, like if it's an underage team, how can you give autonomy to the underage team? That's probably difficult. Just ask them questions about the game. Ask them questions about how they're getting on in the game. What would they like to do next week? They'll tell you they want to do all the fun stuff and let them at it, shooting, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just like build confidence in youngsters. As we said, they might remember the technical stuff you're giving them, but they will definitely remember how you made them feel. So having that positivity around, I think, is a great thing for helping them along as well.
And just on that, Mark, if I could just add, again, I see you've highlighted Anya McNamara there, who has done a lot of work around resilience and rocky road to success. But one of the points that she highlights is better players must be challenged or experience setbacks. This will allow them to develop psychological skills. So if we look at our juvenile structures at Go games, where we encourage players to play in different positions, even in under 11s, I feel that's developing resilience in our players because they're not getting used to playing in the same position all the time. Therefore, they're getting the challenge and they have to adapt. Likewise, with some of the skills that we introduce at Go games and the juvenile level, the two-touch rule, the non-dominant side, they are all skills that players have to develop, and it's developing the resilience to be able to stick at it and work at these sort of things. So hence the reason why the adaptations to our games are introduced at juvenile levels. So in a roundabout way, we are developing our younger players' resilience skills. Okay,
it's huge, and making them use their weak side, for a third is.
Yep. Okay. Mark.
Sorry, Paul, go on ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm finished here. Yeah. Yep. Look, again, no more questions coming in there, Mark. So look, I think we'll draw to a close. We're over an hour and 15 minutes here. So, look at again. Thanks to Mark. Thanks for delivering the webinar. And just again, just
Sorry, Paul, there was just one more question that was me getting. I just don't want to leave anybody short. Is there a couple more coming in?
Yep, there's just one there. Any tips on developing underage players?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things about how we're managing the. Yeah, there's a couple of things coming in there. So the present situation and how we're coping with the minors at the minute. The minors, we're still coaching them as much as we can. It's remote coaching now, we're calling it. So we're giving them a structure to the week. I know the parents are really appreciative of that. So they will have Barry McKenna does up their S&C plan for the week. Jerry and Mark give them skills, things to work on. We encourage the players to come up with stuff themselves. But to keep that bond and keep that, I suppose, that team spirit and stuff, we've had stuff non-football related. So, for example, we had a Zoom quiz last week. Tomorrow night, I think I mentioned, we have a few county seniors dropping in. So we're going to give them an opportunity to ask players that play in their specific positions about, their journey in football. And then I see any tips for developing underage players during the present situation. We're no training. Sorry, Paul, there's a bit of echo back on this. Is that from your mic, is it?
Yeah, no, I don't have my side now. Somebody must have turned off their mic. Yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on.
Okay, so just for developing. Maybe mute all, Paul, for a second. Maybe,
Yeah,
and I just
I would say, Mark, look, we'll draw it to a close, and anybody has any questions, they can come back to you directly or me directly.
Yeah.
No problem. That's
How
okay.
do we
No
need
problem.
to get out of that?
Okay, so thanks very much, folks. Okay,
Okay,
thanks
thanks.
for your patience.